In this series of videos, I'm going to go over the general rehab protocol for a small to medium-sized tear of a rotator cuff repair. Rotator cuff repairs protocols vary by the size of the tear. Usually the case is the bigger the tear, the more conservative the protocol, means the slower we have to progress. I'm going to go over phase 1, which includes weeks 1 to 3 after surgery. In the initial phases of surgery, there's usually a sling that's involved where you have to wear for around 4 to 6 weeks depending on what your surgeon says. When you wear this sling, there's usually a pillow that comes with it. It's called an abduction pillow, and it just kind of helps set the shoulder in a correct position while you're resting on the sling. This sling is meant to be worn at all times, even while you're sleeping, especially while you're sleeping, mainly because you don't want to be rolling over your shoulder while you're in your sleep. When you're doing exercises, the sling can come off, but other than that, the sling stays on. When it comes to swelling because of the surgery, the standard protocol is ice and compression. In the clinic, I usually tell my patients that when they're icing, it's about 10 to 20 minutes, no more than 20, but definitely more than 10. In this phase of rehab, the precautions usually are no active range of motion of the shoulder, meaning you can't lift this arm up with the help of the muscles on that side. You can't lift anything, and you can't bear weight on that surgical arm. When it comes to exercises in this phase of rehab, they're mainly going to be passive, meaning you're not going to be activating the muscles that were just repaired. You want to protect them instead. So the majority of the exercises are going to be done with the arm at rest, but you're going to either use the body to move it or the other arm to move it, trying to keep the surgical side as relaxed as possible. There are precautions for range of motion in this initial phases as well. Within the first 3 weeks or so, you're limited to shoulder flexion to only about 90 degrees. So this motion is shoulder flexion, and 90 degrees is here, 0 degrees is here. So passively, we really shouldn't be going above that. When it comes to external rotation, that's this motion right over here, and we're limited to 20 degrees or so, mainly because we don't really want to stress those muscles by stretching them too far right after they were repaired. So if this is 0 degrees, this is 90 degrees, 20 degrees is about here. So we're really trying to protect the repair. Table slides are a nice way to help promote passive range of motion of the shoulder without actually engaging the muscles of the shoulder. Very easy exercise. Find a table, sit up straight, and you just lean forward with your body. As you lean forward, your shoulder will go with it. Hold it at the end range for about 10 seconds or so, and then you just sit back up. So here we're not exactly at 90. So when you lean forward, as you lean forward, you approach closer and closer. And once you get to 90, your shoulder will let you know it's gonna be tight or it's gonna be a little bit irritated. And you just hold it there for about 10 seconds. Sit back up. I usually have my folks do this about 10 times in the clinic. Going out to the side is another way to kind of help work it. So same thing, you just scoot out a little bit, and then you just lean this way. Again, using just the body, and then sit back up. Same thing, 10-second hold, 10 times. To work on external rotation, I usually have people use something like a stick or a cane. I usually just have them hold on to it like this, and then use the left arm to assist this motion, push it that way. So you're essentially pushing it into external rotation, just keeping it to about that 20-degree range. Once it gets there, your shoulder will let you know. 10-second holds, and then use the left arm to pull it back. I'm trying to keep my right shoulder as relaxed as possible as I'm going through this gentle motion. And I usually have my folks do this about 10 times. You can do active range of motion exercises with the elbow, wrist, and the hand. The only exception is if your surgeon did something to your bicep, meaning they did like a tenodesis or like a tenotomy. Either way, if there's involvement with the surgery involving the bicep, then you can't really do any elbow flexion, mainly because that turns on the bicep. These exercises are meant to maintain motion in your elbow, wrist, and hand. Once you come off the sling, you can do more with the shoulder at that point, and at that point, you don't have to do these exercises anymore. These active exercises for the elbow, wrist, and hand include elbow flexion, elbow extension, forearm pronation, forearm supination, wrist circles one way, and then wrist circles the other way, and then making a fist, and then opening. I usually have my patients do 20 times in each of those motions just to maintain the range of motion in your elbow, wrist, and hand. Only gentle strengthening is allowed in this phase of rehab, and this is strengthening for the muscles that surround your shoulder blades. So these are your scapular muscles. This doesn't really involve your rotator cuff, so we can still protect the repair while we work the muscles around it. These exercises include shoulder blade squeezes or scat retracts. So when you're doing shoulder blade squeezes, you're essentially just taking your shoulder blades and you're pinching them together and then bringing them down. So you almost want to bring your right shoulder blade to the opposite hip. Your left shoulder blade in, opposite hip. So you're almost creating like an X. So you want to bring it back and down. Hold it there for about 5 seconds, and then you repeat. Back and down, hold it there for about 5 seconds, and then you repeat. The next exercise is called an inferior glide. You're using the muscles to help loosen up the shoulder joint, essentially is what you're doing. So you need your arms supported and off to the side as far as you can go from here, okay? Ideally on the table, and essentially what you're doing here is taking the shoulder and pushing it down, using the shoulder blade muscles to push it down. Hold it for about 5 seconds, and then relax. And you do this about 10 times. So taking the shoulder blade and pushing it down. That will get the head of the humerus, which is the upper arm bone, to glide downward for us. Last strengthening is going to be for your hand and wrist. So you take a squeeze ball and you're basically squeezing it with your arm resting by your thigh. So then that way you can relax the muscles around your shoulder as much as you can. I usually just have my folks do this about 20 times. This is just the general overview of what a small to medium sized tear of a rotator cuff repair looks like in the initial phases. There's some minute differences and variations between different protocols and based off of your surgeon's preference. So ask your surgeon for any details of what they want you to specifically do for the protocol. But this is what it generally looks like in the first 3 weeks in the rehab process. After the exercises, if you feel a little sore, please feel free to use ice and compression for 10 to 20 minutes to help alleviate some of that soreness in the shoulder. In my next video, I'm going to cover phase 2, which goes over week 4 to 6, and there's a little bit of variations and some progressions on the exercises as well. So stay tuned for that. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. Please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy this content, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.